We're recording today. So welcome everyone. And James, if you want to skip to the next slide, we're really glad that Connecticut manufacturing interns are here today to participate in a great presentation, an introduction to digital transformation in manufacturing. And I am Eileen Candles. If we haven't yet met, I'm thrilled to kind of see you online. I know today we are going to keep you muted and keep your cameras off, but the team here at CCAT is really glad to be helping support your employer and your participation in additional learning outside of what you're learning on the job. So can go to the next slide, James, and I'm just going to briefly talk about the agenda and some housekeeping items. So I'm the Director of Partnerships at CCAT. You are likely getting emails from me. If you haven't received emails from me as an intern, please make sure my email is legible by you and not go into your spam, and because I'll be having other updates about future programs, events, tours that are happening throughout the rest of July and into very early August. I will give a fast update at the end of this discussion today. We're scheduled and available to go till around noon. If you have additional questions, in addition to hearing from James' great materials, we want you to please put your questions in the chat and we will monitor the chat and make sure that James answers everything there, or I do if it's a question for me. And with that said, one last thing, if you're in a conference room with other interns, please provide for me in the chat the names of everybody who is logged in and who is participating in that group setting. And thank you again. With that said, I'm going to turn it over to you, James. I know you will introduce yourself, and we're really, really excited that you're here at CCAT and that once again, you're sharing a lot of amazing information, timely information for these interns and the companies that they're working at. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Eileen. Appreciate it. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar for today. My name is James Brino. I am a member of the CCAT Talent and Training team. I am our curriculum and training manager, as well as a technical trainer in our talent and training organization. So happy to be here today to talk with you about digital transformation. So lots of times digital transformation, or you may hear it as DT potentially at your organizations, is something that is a buzzword today, right? Talking a lot about how we as organizations and manufacturers and so on want to move into the new 21st century, the digital world, right? But how do we actually do that? What are some of the basic foundations of it? So that's what we're going to talk about today. Talk about how you all as interns going back to your universities and colleges and your programs, how can you actually take some of what we learned today, and then once you graduate, you move on to a full-time role. How do you actually take the information and help an organization transform digitally? And that's what we'll talk about today. So I'm a huge fan of some of those AI-generated images. So this is an AI-generated image using DALL-E from ChatGPT from the OpenAI LLM. The prompt that I gave this was create an image of digital transformation in a company who supplies to an aerospace organization. And so here you can see just some of those concepts that we'll talk about today. AR, VR, robotics, automation. Everyone has some sort of device, right? Either a tablet or a computer or a cell phone, right? All of that. How can we actually digitally connect some of that data? That's what we'll talk about today. I thought this was a cool image. Unfortunately, though, we don't make a aircraft engine on an assembly line like shown here, right? Coming off an assembly line like that. But, this is really the concept that we'll try and talk about. How can we take the processes, the older, the antiquated, the manual, some of those processes, and move them into the new digital world? Because many times companies are just not there yet, right? It can take a lot of resources and time and even people to do some of this work. So that's what we'll discuss today. So first, just want to touch on what is digital transformation. What are the main concepts, right? What's the definition of digital transformation today for our manufacturing environment? So really, it is a integration of digital technologies in all areas of manufacturing. And the idea here is to fundamentally change how we develop, produce, and ultimately deliver products, that are coming off of our assembly plants and our lines. And the key, though, and really the most important aspect of this, is to improve operational efficiency, enhance product quality, and reduce cost. That's really the key to digital transformation today, is ensuring that we have things that will help us operationally enhance our safety and our quality, reduce costs for our manufacturers. And that's what you'll see in many of your organizations today. And I want you to start thinking about, I'm going to pose a couple of questions that I'd like some of you to, if you can, to answer in the chat. Is think of the facility that you're at now, at the company that you're at now. Do you see anything that's not digital? Do you see paper? Do you see things that potentially could be computer based, right? And start thinking about how can we actually, and what it would take to actually transform some of these, paper manual processes. And it could be anything from, you getting a piece of paper from your manager, right, in an email, or how they track information at the facility, or how they develop new products, right? There's all of these different, areas that we can focus in on. So digital transformation really is that adoption of new technology and processes. So it's not only technology, right? So technology being, hardware and software and things like that. A lot of people think digital transformation has to be hardware and software related. It does not. It can be also process related as well. So taking a manual process and automating it in some way. And it is really that key, that fundamental change in the way the business operates and engages with its customers. And it doesn't have to be just a single initiative, it's a set of initiatives. And really, it can affect all aspects of a business. So, not only product development, manufacturing, quality, but things such as accounting and finance, HR, sales, right, customer service. So, great example, right? A lot of us are in that manufacturing world. But there are examples of digital transformation in finance and accounting. So, for example, moving from an Excel sheet to some sort of ERP software, right? Enterprise resource management software. That is considered digital transformation. Taking something that was old, manual, time intensive, and moving it to a new, faster, maybe automated approach. Same thing with payroll, HR, you name it. Anything that is an old manual process that moves into that new digital approach, that is considered digital transformation. And it doesn't have to be drastic, right? There are small changes that organizations can make that will, 100% impact or fundamentally change the way, that business operates. And I'll give some examples of this throughout our presentation as well. So really, digital transformation, there are what we call domains of digital transformation, or of DT. So there are technically 5 domains. Here you only see 4, and you could be saying, James, what is that last one? And so the last one, which is overarching here, is talent and people, right? The people, the processes, the technology, the data, the organizational change, everything that you see on this slide goes hand in hand in digital transformation. But without one, or maybe let one of these domains slide for whatever reason in a digital transformation project or proposal, you will not be successful. All 5 of these areas have to be working hand in hand in order and be focused on in order for any sort of digital transformation initiative or project to be successful. The reason the talent bubble there is around all of the other 4 is because that is the most critical, that we found, at least at CCAT and some of the work that I've done with organizations. If we have a resistance to change in an organization, if it's the people, right, maybe older processes or things of that nature, a lot of the resistance will come from the people in the workforce, and that cultural barrier. So we've been doing it the same way for 30 years. Why do we have to change, right? And that is something that we will hear constantly, in our day to day. When you go and you graduate from your programs, you go on to be a full-time employee somewhere. A lot of what you will hear is, we've been doing it the same way for 10, 15, 30, 40, 100 years. Why do we have to change the way that we're doing it? And that's really that cultural barrier we'll talk about today. But I want to dive into each of these individually, some of these concepts, just to explain why are they important, how can we actually address some of these in some digital transformation. So first one that I want to touch on is technology. And you could say, this is important to CCAT because we are, a technology demonstration training center. Our goal is to advance technology. And so really what it comes down to today and what's really trending today, and we hear from many, many business leaders, is that leaders must provide and demonstrate business value with each and every one of their technological innovations. So technology is extremely critical for any digital transformation effort in any business today. Without computers and systems and software and interconnection of that, right, we're not going to be able to achieve what we as organizations would like. So really the key is to actually look at what is your current workflow in your tool chains, flow chart that and actually identify shortcomings and bottlenecks. Looking at how can we actually take what we have today and transform it to the future. A lot of this is working with technology providers, with industry, with our state manufacturing extension partners like Constep or CCAT, or COEs meaning centers of excellence. There's many around the state and in our region that will actually help us and guide us in some of these technological advancements. And what we've also found is that communication skills are vital here. So many of you that are in more of those technical programs in your universities, you may never take a communications class, right? But I highly, highly encourage you, if you are, in a technical field, and maybe your program at a university doesn't require a communications class, try and take one, right? Maybe as an elective or something of that nature, because communication skills are vital for every single industry from, us in engineering to accounting, finance, HR. Communication skills are vital in today's workforce. There are many, many ways to communicate. And the way that we communicate value, results, potential time savings, monetarily and time, right? All those savings is critical here, especially with digital transformation efforts. So I highly encourage you to step out of your comfort zone, go take a communications course. Go take a class on communications, either virtually, so on and so forth, really just to provide that effective communication. The funnel that you see there on the right-hand side, is a combination of all of that. So innovation, strategic decision-making, technical debt. So one new term that you may have heard is technical debt. So what is technical debt and why does it funnel into that overall kind of effective communication, and how we actually communicate as individuals? So this, technical debt may be a new term for you. It's highly used today in software development, but you'll hear it less and less outside of software development. But I really think this is a critical area here. It's the shortcomings or compromises when implementing new technology. So just remember that if you try and do a digital transformation effort, it's not going to be 100% exactly what your organization would like. You do need to make compromises, right? Life today, right? There are many, many ways that we'll need to compromise, either with shortcomings of the technology, right? You name it. Maybe it's just a tool that doesn't exist yet today, right? And we have to develop something. But technical debt, right, is one of the leading causes of failure of digital transformation efforts. And that's because there's inefficiencies, high costs, quality issues, right? And there's both intentional and unintentional technical debt, meaning is it when we actually make a conscious choice as an organization to, optimize, with some sort of technical debt? Meaning, is it better to do some of this effort than, scrap the whole concept and say we're not working on, digitizing this process here or there, because there's no process or no software for us today? Or is it unintentional, meaning, right, that we have an unavoidable mistake, right? We try and onboard a software, we're told that it does, or this hardware or software, we're told that it does everything, and then come to find out it doesn't actually. We know that manufacturers really focus in on that intentional technical debt because there may not be a tool available to you that will do everything that you want it to be. And is it better to, adopt something, a process or a technology that will do 90% of what you do or what you'd like it to do versus 100% or 99%, right? And that's where that balancing act comes in. And that's what I really like this image here on the right, showing that it's going to be a balancing act. That unintentional we do want to avoid. We want to ensure that, when we're working on projects and we're proposing new ideas and concepts and processes, we want to actually be able to, avoid those unintentional. I actually want to show an example of what a tool chain looks like. And I actually alluded to this on the previous slide as well. It's actually looking at, what we have, what the software stack, typically software stack is what we refer to it as, or a tool chain that we have today. And how can we actually optimize it for whatever we're working on? So whatever digital transformation effort that we're looking at. So here you're showing just an example of an additive manufacturing tool chain. So looking at going from a CAD software to a additive 3D printer, right? How do we actually get there? And so this is just an example of some of that, some of those software tools you potentially could have and use for additive manufacturing. Documenting these are extremely critical to ensure where you are today and where you'd like to move in the future, especially with some of these digital transformation processes. And I'll show some additional examples later on in the presentation as well. And the key areas identify areas of improvement, really to be able to focus in on what can improve, how to improve it, right? So on and so forth. And feel free to continue with questions and comments in the chat. I'm seeing a few great comments here, so continue if you have any questions. I know Eileen will stop if need be. So one of the next domains I want to focus in on, so of the four key domains there, data is the next one. So according to a Harvard Business Review article, only about 3% of companies today have data that meets basic quality standards. And when I say quality standards, that means something that I can actually use to benefit my organization. So, as organizations, large and small, we're collecting data every single minute of the day, right? Of, how many pieces are coming off a manufacturing cell, or how many orders are we taking today, or the number of transactions we make in our, sales department, right? All of that data is being tracked, but a very small fraction of those companies actually have any way to actually see that data, consume it. And when I say consume it, actually, see it and make some actionable, information out of it. Digital transformation efforts require, and when I say require, I actually mean require, it's a non-negotiable, robust data quality and analytics capability. So for example, right, having data at your fingertips. So through a database like Power BI or Tableau, or being able to actually pull data from a system effectively, accurately in a way that a human can read. And so we need to actually, as leaders and as folks that are going to be doing this work, the actual executors of many of these processes, we need to actually look at how the people that are doing this work take in data, right? So how are we both data customers and data creators? So many times leaders at organizations, they're considered data customers, meaning they want a specific piece of data, specific trend, let's say, about their processes, and they're a customer. They want to get it as quick as they can. But for us, right, coming right out of programs and universities, right, internships, things like that, a lot of times we're considered data creators, meaning we're actually going to be creating some of that data. And how do we actually ensure that these meet our expectations? So we need to make sure that the data creators are producing information and have systems in place that will meet our expectations for that quality aspect that I referred to. We also know that key performance indicators or KPIs, being able to lay that out ahead of time before going into any sort of data or digital transformation project is critical. KPIs meaning, what are we actually tracking? What are our metrics? What are we able to actually track our progress to, right? And so those are important to lay out ahead of time so that in our data quality and our analytics and our softwares like Power BI or Tableau or similar, how do we actually ensure that we can track that effectively? And really what it comes down to is data-driven decision making. And that is something that we're going to be hearing more and more and more, as, digital transformation efforts across industries start moving, moving towards, fruition, is how can we take the data that we're collecting and make a decision based off of it, make an informed decision, or what we call data-driven decision making. And the image on the bottom right really shows what all of the data types can be, right? We have proprietary data, unstructured data. A lot of companies have large swaths of data. How do we actually take that and make actionable, take action from that, actionable details, as well as cybersecurity concerns, right? Ensuring that we have, the data structure and the access that will, limit us from having potential data exposures via cybercrime and things like that. So all of that comes into this data domain. And each digital transformation project or effort that you're going to be doing is different, right? Some don't require much data at all, or any way to track that data, versus some, like some of the accounting and finance and the enterprise-wide organizational activities, that's going to require a lot of data. So a great example of this is using this data, the data-driven decision making, for strategic planning and insight. So this is just an example of a KPI dashboard that us at CCAT, we actually use Salesforce to do some of this. So this is just a quick snapshot of what it looks like to actually have this data available. So behind the scenes of this KPI dashboard, many reports, many lines and lines of data coming in. But if I looked at that, those lines and lines of data, I could not make any decision whatsoever, right? Because it is not formatted in a way that is, appropriate to me, right, as a human. For a computer, right, lines and lines of data, computers love to, to do that. But for a human, it would take me a lot of time, and get very frustrated to get any sort of actionable strategic insight from lines and lines of data. So that's where a dashboard like this comes in, right? It very quickly tells me what I need to know. And for example, a graph, right, showing attendance by month, for example, right, showing some of the actionable data pulling. The third area that I want to touch on, process. So like I mentioned earlier today as well, digital transformation doesn't have to be all about a new shiny piece of equipment or a new software. It could also be about process, right? We need to ensure that we have the end-to-end process in mind, right? Digital transformation is that fundamental change of thinking and the way that a business operates. So rethinking the way that we meet our customer demands. We also need to not operate in silos. So many times you'll hear that, we're operating in a silo, or we're not talking to this department. This department's not talking to us, right? And so we need to align all of our silos not only with each other, but in the direction of our customer, right? Our customer is our top priority in any organization, for profit, nonprofit, right? Educational institutions, you name it. Our customer, right? That's the center of our business is our customer. Without customers, we don't have a business. So that's why we have to ensure that we align ourselves solely to our customer, right? And we're going to improve, the process, or design new ones to do that, right? And there's different ways that we can think about process improvement. We have process reimagination and then process improvement, reengineering and process improvement, So you can think about ways to reimagine processes, meaning how do you actually take something that's already developed today and just reimagine it, right? How do we actually, reimagine, make small incremental improvements, to that process? Or can we re-engineer that full process, meaning we throw out the entire process and start over, right? And there's different ways to be thinking about this, and there's pros and cons to these, process reimaginations as well. So re-engineering is fully redeveloping a process, meaning you're not starting from point B, you're starting from the very bottom and re-engineering that entire process. Versus process improvement, you have a somewhat successful process. Maybe it's not 100% efficient, or there's some room for improvement, you can actually, do small incremental process improvement. So there's two really, thoughts here. My preference would be to completely re-engineer a process, especially with digital transformation. And that's because if you start at a process that's already been developed, you're going to get that mentality of, we've been doing it this way for 30 years. Why change it, right? And it's harder to get that cultural, that cultural and workforce adoption from a process improvement than a re-engineering. Re-engineering, it's a brand new process. No one knows, anything that it was before, right? It's a completely different process. So just as a thought there. And so I just want to encourage you that this is what you'll be hearing when you're going either in your internships or, after you graduate from your program and go into a full-time role, is that this is going to be a very common thing for you. So if you start doing some process work, right? Maybe you're a process engineer or a systems engineer, start thinking about process improvement versus re-engineering. What does it take to do each? And some of that background, digital transformation efforts as well. And so the final key domain that I want to touch on is organizational change. So this is all about the organization as a whole. So is your organization capable of fundamentally changing, right? That is the key question when looking at digital transformation, right? And leaders need to be keenly aware of that human side of change. So for you all, right, we want to ensure that you are keenly aware that humans are very, very hesitant to change, right? Workers are far more willing and able to embrace change than their employer assumes. Meaning, right, a lot of times companies will say, no one's going to buy this, because this is the way it's always been. But workers are actually far more willing to do that. And there's actually a Harvard Business Review journal article from even before kind of that whole pandemic in 2020 that says that the workforce is more adaptable than you think it is. And leaders need to address this, and that we have to ensure that we have the right talent to do it as well, right? So leadership, teamwork, emotional intelligence, right? Ensuring that we have, the right team to actually change the process, change the organization. And I've been on both sides of this. I've been at organizations that don't really have the willingness from the leadership level and the workers that are actually doing the work to change, right? The leadership is not pushing this. The workforce is old in their ways, things of that nature. I've been in other organizations that the leaders are really pushing down and saying, this is the way the business needs to go. This is the change that we need to see. And we need to make sure that we have the right talent to do it. And we either upskill those that are actually, still in the organization, or hire new folks to come in and actually lead some of that effort. So I've seen both sides of that. And so, you see the image on the right. Those are all extremely important attributes to have in organizational change, right? Being able to lead, to show that teamwork, and then also having courage to actually do this, right? Many times it takes more, just to step off on a project, so that courage and that emotional intelligence, those two are really, really critical, to have, especially in that organizational change aspect. And so the final domain that I want to touch on is that what we call the vital domain, the one that's overarching all of them from the image earlier. It's our talent, it's our workforce, it's that cultural change. So we want to create a learning culture at our companies. We want to be able to come into an organization. So you all coming into a organization full time, or even your internship, you'll always want to have that learning culture, continuously learning, continuously improving yourself as well as your organization. So not just going to trainings for the sake of going to trainings, or because your company is saying, hey, you need to do 2 trainings a year. This is what you have to do, or do it online, you name it, right? We want to engage employees in this transition to digital approaches. We don't want to just say, this is the process, go figure it out. We want to actually guide them through that digital transition. Many folks will feel more comfortable if we do that. Especially, you all, coming in and learning and growing in the digital world, it will be much easier for you to adopt many of these technologies, now that you're actually doing it every single day. We also know that there's, a plague of chronic uncertainty in organizations today. Is this going to eliminate my job? Is this going to, make me go find, a different area of expertise, right? And so we want to give people opportunities to learn, to show their craft, to grow, and actually, be able to learn what we're doing. So these digital transformation efforts that we've been talking about, it's all about how we can get the people to, support, and how can we get the workers to actually support these, learn and grow. And we want to communicate benefits, opportunities, be eager to embrace this change, and encourage learning of new skills, right? So always be a lifelong learner. Always learn at your pace, of course, but learn fast, right? We know that there is thousands and thousands of courses for free online that you could take, from Google to Coursera to you name it, right? There's so many opportunities to learn new things, to gather, those credentials, digital credentials, showing them on your resume, right? That's really the key here, is to be able to be a lifelong learner. We also know that having these kind of three characteristics of yourself really are going to put you ahead of that curve. So looking at being a change agent, having someone that's going to say, hey, this is not the best way we could be doing this, right? Is there a way that we can improve the process? We can speed it up by doing XYZ differently. We also know that folks need to have technical know-how, and so you having technical expertise in whatever field you're going to be in is extremely important. So in that more manufacturing world, right, having that expertise in design or manufacturing or quality or whatever your domain is going to be. But also if you're in some of those support or operations roles, like accounting, finance, right, all of that, ensuring that you have that technical expertise. As well as being well connected in the organization. So being connected with supervisors and managers, asking for mentorship, right? That's something that you can do even this summer if you don't already have a mentor. Go up to a supervisor, manager, or someone even outside of your organization and ask, hey, can we meet a few times for coffee? Just talk about my career, talk about how you got to where you are today. Really being able to have those organizational wide connections, and that's not something that comes with time. That's something you can do right now, right? Go to your manager, supervisor, someone outside of your department that you may be familiar with at the company, and say, hey, go ahead, say, hey, can we meet for coffee? Just talk about how you're here, why you're here, how you got to that 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 position. So really all of these domains come together. And what I love to show is like a car, for example, right? So without the engine, this car is not going to operate. But without the wheels, right, it's also not going to operate if we have the engine. So all of these all five of these, from process, talent, data, organizational change, technology, right? They're all critical for these, to be to be successful, right? All of these technology innovations, some of our digital transformation efforts, you name it, right? Without all of these domains, it's not gonna not gonna be successful, and we won't be able to drive away in our car. And we also know that the sequence matters in digital transformation and any transformation, but let's say primarily, the digital approach that we've been talking about, right? So, it matters which way we do this. And so this is really the key, this pyramid here, it's really that key. So going from data, starting with that foundation of data, moving into your process and organizational change, talent is typically at the tippity top, meaning it's important, but technology is really above that, right? Is ensuring that the technology is in place, that's accessible, that everyone understands, right? That process moving forward. So many times you'll hear that digital transformation is disruptive. It does not have to be disruptive to the organization. Many times it is, though. Many times you want digital transformation efforts to be disruptive to the organization, but it doesn't have to be, right? And it does not change the reason the organization exists, right? If you're there producing a part, that goes into an aircraft engine, that is why your organization is there. That is your key. Your customer is the center. Digital transformation is there to help us to improve our processes moving forward. And we want to focus on problems that the organization would like to prioritize. So we want to focus on customer need, flexibility, and look at that incremental change. It doesn't have to be all overnight. So that just some of the key there. So I saw a question, so I can quickly do that before I move on. So I want to show an example of a digital transformation. What digital transformation looks like. So Vivian said, on the topic of managing chronic uncertainty, do you believe upcoming generations, especially with most people here being Gen Z, are starting to prioritize company culture more than ever before? Oh, yes, I 100% agree. That's something that I'm doing today as well, right? So even as a manager, I prioritize company culture and having those relationships at an organization. They are very, very important because we know things are changing, right? Older generations, they focused on their responsibilities at work. Gen Z, Gen X, right? Some of the generations coming into the workforce today, it's a little bit opposite, right? We focus primarily on the relationships and the building of that culture, also while striving to do that, do work effectively and work that matters, and you feel like you're actually contributing to the company, organization, and that mission. But it's important, right? That company culture is really, really important. So hopefully that answered that question. But we can have more discussion, at the end as well. So next area, next kind of section of our presentation, I want to give an example of a digital transformation effort, and that is model-based engineering. Some of you may have heard, this term MBE before, model-based engineering. This is a fundamental change in the way that we're operating as organizations, especially in manufacturing. So not only aerospace, but medical device, commercial work, right? Commercially available retail products, things like that are moving into a new model-based approach, fully digital. So this is a 2D print, right? Many of us have seen 2D prints before, and that is a blueprint like you see here. Everything is paper-based. You may be looking at it on a screen, but it's still considered 2D, right? Sometimes we get a model, right? A CAD model like shown there. Sometimes we don't. But that CAD model is what we call just supplemental, meaning if you get a 2D print, that 2D print is what you use to produce that part. That model might just be there to help us. The digital transformation that's happening here is actually combining the 2D print and the model together in what we're calling model-based definition that then rolls into model-based engineering, that engineering process that's model-based. So here's actually an example of a model-based definition or model-based engineering approach. It is no longer a 2D print that has all that information like we saw on the previous slide. It is a model that has all of that associated information on the model itself. This is benefiting us in many, many ways, including workflow automation. And that's why this is considered a digital transformation effort. A lot of companies today are moving towards model-based definition and model-based engineering because it is, first and foremost required by many of our customers, especially some, by the Department of Defense and some of those, contractors that work for the defense industrial base, but also because we're seeing the ability to speed up our lead time, reduce human errors, and efficiency. We're seeing lots and lots of efficiency. So, for example, right, the DoD has come out with this instruction. I encourage you to download a copy. It's completely free to download. Google DoD instruction 5000.97. This is the future. This is what you all will be walking into if you're working in any sort of aerospace defense world, from maritime to aerospace to you name it. This is the future. All programs from the DoD after January of 2024, so about a year and a half ago, required digital engineering, meaning those models with all that associated information, that is the future. So you at your programs today, right, you're taking a CAD class, you may learn how to do 2D prints. That is not the future. The future is that model-based approaches. So here just showing that example from 2D to model-based. We're moving into something that is able to be digitally read by anyone. That information is now digitally encoded. Software can read it automatically. We can speed up our lead time, speed up our our processes, moving forward. And the key is that single source of truth, meaning, right, from 2D to 3D, we no longer have variation from person to person. For example, someone can print out that 2D document, write on it, post it on their wall. If there's an update to that document, what happens, right? We now have an uncontrolled document that is an old version. Let's say we make it to that, and now we've scrapped, parts, for example, right? Because we've made to the old revision. There's no control when it comes to a 2D print. With the model-based approach, that is our single source of truth, meaning from start to finish, from what we call inception to disposal of a product. That is our truth. That's what we're going to base all of our information on. And there's machine workflows that come with this. We can actually consume, when I say consume, actually use that information in our workflows. And I actually will show an example in a couple of slides. So, going from that 2D approach, all human interpretation, it is a manual process. Moving digital, right, with the 3D model-based approach, we have, of course, reviewers, right, but we also have automation. We also have ways in which we can automate our workflows. So you can see here just some examples of what we could do, from actually costing the part all the way through to actually inspecting that part and delivering an inspection report to our customer. All of that can be automated or semi-automated using that approach, the new digital approach, which is that model-based. Throughout our manufacturing process, right, this is fundamentally changing the way that we're working, that model-based approaches. So this is considered, digital transformation, right? Going from a 2D paper, old manual process, to that new digital approach, fully digital, with automation, fundamentally changing the way that we work, not only at an individual, person level or cell level, right, at a manufacturing company, but across all of our workflows. From here, you can see from design through manufacturing, quality, right? At that, all of that is going to be affected by this new model-based approach that's coming. So it's important, right, to know that, to learn that, so that when you go into a company and you actually start working full time, that you're eons ahead of people that maybe are not in that. Great example. I was in a meeting with some high level folks from Pratt and Whitney a couple of months ago. One of the comments was, we want to hire people that have model-based engineering and model-based definition experience, but we can't hire them because no colleges and organizations have actually started teaching it yet. So they said, if you know anyone that has any model-based definition experience, send them our way. We'll hire them right away, right? So it is something that companies are actually seeing as beneficial, right, moving forward with newer engineers. So just some examples of model-based workflows. So instead of taking a standard 2D print and doing our computer-aided manufacturing, we're taking that model with all that associated information, and we're able to automate our CNC programming, right, for a milling machine like shown here. So just an example, right? We can do that in SolidWorks. We can do that in Siemens and Creo and whatever CAD platforms that you're using. That's capable. All of those tools are now capable to do that. Same thing with quality and inspection workflow. Looking at how can we actually program some of these machines, these CNC machines, to actually do that inspection, right? All of that can be done, pretty much semi-autonomously now with that digital information in that model, in that 3D model. So just want to give you just a little bit of an overview now of what CCAT offers for training. And this is something that you all could actually take advantage of this summer. And so you can reach out to Eileen, myself, right? And we can give you information on this. But we actually offer training on that model-based engineering and model-based definition, where you can actually come in and get hands-on and actually learn some of those tools. So this is our digital thread lab. It was funded by the DoD. It's a class size of between 9 and 12 individuals, so it's not one-on-one like it's like a college class, right? And you can actually come in and learn some of these new technologies. We offer other types of training as well. So this is just what we call tailored pathways, meaning you can actually come in and learn the CAD for model-based engineering. You can learn the CNC milling programming. You can come learn the inspection programming, right? All of that is available at CCAT, and you can take advantage of that this summer. So those classes run throughout the summer into August and September, depending on when your internships finish up. Highly encourage you to come for that first day, what we call our awareness level class, learning why are we doing this? Why is it important? Why is the DoD telling us? What are some of the benefits? And so there's some details there. Feel free to scan that QR code. We'll bring you to the class registration page. We're gonna actually go in and actually start looking at some of these classes that are available. And speaking of credentials, we also offer digital credentials for all these classes as well. So if you come in and you take our class, take a class, I mean, you'll actually receive a digital credential through Credly. Credly is that badging platform you may have seen on LinkedIn. So you actually would receive one of these. You can add it to your resume, share it on LinkedIn, just showing that you actually know this information, and companies will definitely see that and say, all right, that's someone that I may want on my team, my digital transformation, organization in the future. So with that, that is the end of my, formal aspect of the webinar today. So I will open it up for any questions. So feel free to add any of your questions in the chat there, and I will answer them. And then I'll hand it back off to Eileen once we're, if there's no question.
James, did we want to perhaps ask the interns if they are already seeing digital transformation in their
Oh,
companies
yeah,
or?
yeah, for sure. So, some of you, may be in CAD classes, right? Learning SolidWorks or Siemens NX or something like that. Is anyone seeing any of this model-based definition and model-based engineering in some of their classes? Just speaking from my, I have a mechanical engineering degree a while ago, of course, but we did 2D document creation. So we did all modeling, and then took that model and put it on a 2D print, like you saw in that image there. So that wouldn't have helped me, right, in this new model-based environment coming up. Is anyone seeing? I guess, what are you using? Oh yeah, David, exactly. Yeah. So that is outstanding. So we should definitely connect, because I can help with some of that, right? So we're using Siemens NX, every single day. We have an entire class dedicated to, adding PMI, PMI standing for product and manufacturing information. That's all of your dimensions and tolerances and, right, everything that was associated in that image. I can actually quickly go back and show that. So yeah, so these call outs here, that's considered PMI, product and manufacturing information. So yeah, that's great, David. So you're learning that now, which is outstanding, because that'll come in handy, especially when you go full time at an organization, because this is the future. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
great.
and David's at Triumph,
Okay,
James.
outstanding. Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
hmm.
I was out at the Triumph facility in Forest, Ohio a couple of weeks ago. Met some of those folks there. So yeah, Triumph has been great. We're continuously working with them on, this is the future, right? So that's a great great thing.
Oh, awesome. And Quinn is over at LeGrand
Okay,
in West
outstanding.
Hartford.
Yeah, yeah. Great. Yeah, so that's maybe more of that, product data management, life cycle management, right? So that's a, key part of digital transformation as well, as having somewhere to store the information. So having the Siemens Team Center or SolidWorks PDM or Creo or I guess it's considered PTC Windchill, right? Having those databases, the digital data, right, somewhere to live, that's really important. All right.
Awesome.
Any other questions that I can answer? I'll go back to our QA slide.
Yeah.
Oh, so
And James,
great.
definitely if we'll have you drop your, or I'll drop your email in the chat too.
Okay, great. Yeah. Question from Grace there. When do you think model-based definition will start being taught at schools? That's a great question. So, something that, CCAT's been working with, especially in Connecticut, universities, we have actually a faculty fellowship program where some of your professors have actually come to CCAT, and learned all of our content and curriculum, and actually came and did our classes. So it is being developed now. So folks that from Central Connecticut State University, UConn, Fairfield University, University of Bridgeport, CT State, some of those programs, you'll see model-based definition in your programs coming up, in the next, next year, right? And we're expanding that with help from the State Office of Manufacturing, and the MIF board, right? We're going to be expanding that into, other universities as well. So, if your university was not on that list, let us know, right? And we'll try and reach out to your faculty, and get them to, participate. We're actually also working with some folks from Massachusetts as well. So, Springfield College was on that list, right? So, yeah, we're trying to push it out.
That's awesome, James.
Yeah.
Yeah, and many of our programs are also available. These trainings are available to other universities outside of Connecticut, as James
Yep.
mentioned, and
Yep.
companies that are outside of Connecticut as well. So
Yep.
feel free to mention this this training today to your direct managers, because we have our open doors here to have so many more students come in, students who are already employees at companies, as well as people like yourself who are going to school.
Yeah, Quinn, we can definitely connect. We have some contacts with WPI. So, our chief talent training officer, Amy Thompson, has some contacts up there. So definitely, definitely.
Fabulous.
Okay.
Well, feel free. You can add, James is going to stay on with us. I'm just going to quickly wrap up with a couple of comments about upcoming events. So thanks, James, for moving these forward and for an awesome presentation. And definitely to anyone on the call still, I corrected my typo there on James's email. So jbrino@ccat.us. And if you want to connect directly, or I know you'd also be willing to have more contacts on LinkedIn. And we want you to both actively do that with each other. So any names that you've noticed in the chat and introductions that you've made, maybe you share a major, maybe you share an interest, or maybe you want to connect with someone who's interning at one of the companies that you've seen listed today. Definitely, we're hoping you'll continue to expand your connections. So quickly on upcoming events that are part of this program, I know there are a couple of you who have not previously heard anything or even yet received a welcome email from me, because I got at least one new registration this morning who wasn't currently on any of our email blasts. So we've held a couple of tours already this summer. Our next up is number 3 on July 11th at Reno Machine. They're an aerospace company manufacturer in Newington, Connecticut, right off the Berlin Turnpike. And then on July 24th, our orders, I see there, our numbers are confused, but July 24th will be down at Bigelow Tea, followed by July 31st at Farrell Pomini in Ansonia. And I will have some headcount constraints on a couple of these. So look at these schedules, and all of the events can be found at that URL you see in the lower right-hand side. And I frequently send out the updated chart of events that we're having. And the last thing to make a comment of is we moved the date of the end of summer networking social and dinner event at Bear's Barbecue down in New Haven. It's easily off of like the intersection of 91 and 95. Parking's available, so don't worry that you'd have to find parking or pay for parking. But it's now August 6th, which is a Wednesday night instead of August 13th. So I hope that will accommodate more of you to participate. It's totally just an open evening. Hopefully the weather will be nice. We'll be outside. I think it was beautiful weather a couple of years ago. Last year we had some rain, but hopefully it'll be a fun night, and there's always great food, and there's usually leftovers to take home too. So sign up for all of these events. And if you flip to the next slide, in the next couple of weeks, we have more webinars. So next week on July 2nd, our colleague Colette will be talking about your social media footprint and presence, as well as sharing some insights into the end of summer presentations that interns are frequently asked to make, either at the company you're working at or possibly back at school when you return. So she'll have some tips and pointers for that. And then some colleagues of ours from our Advanced Technology Center will be sharing information about artificial intelligence and changes and trends in manufacturing on July 8th. Both of those webinars are also like a noon to 1 o'clock schedule. And then as James invited you, you are welcome to explore and sign up for some of our classes in digital transformation or additive workflows. You should talk to your employer about that because typically we want to have their endorsement as well. And then towards the end of the summer, I'll be sending out a survey that I hope you'll all reply to. We'll survey you after today too. It's 2 questions, so it should take you no more than a minute. And then follow us on social media. We really want to reinvigorate a group that we have called hashtag Connecticut Manufacturing Interns on LinkedIn and have that be a way for you to more easily connect with each other. I can't share your emails openly with each other, but you can connect via LinkedIn. And we want you to have this whole program give you the experience of you relating and finding more connections who are both your age and your colleagues, maybe who can tell you about a place they interned and maybe you want to apply to intern that place next summer. So you can share information. And from past intern cohorts, we've even had people who we knew became friends and ultimately rented apartments once they were post graduation. So hey, it's an opportunity here for you to build and find community. And then we want you to return next summer. If you're not going to be a graduating senior, you can always come back to this program. So just a couple more quick points from me as we wrap up. And really, I want to echo some things that you said, James. So a couple of main points that I heard, not being the technical engineer that many of you might be, but I loved some of these other suggestions you had. If your major is a STEM or an engineering major and you haven't taken a communication class, take one. It's critical for your work success going forward. For everybody, we all can improve on our communication skills. Number 2, being a strategic catalyst for change, both embracing digital transformation and for change in general at a company is key. And you want to be the person who has that reputation for moving forward, right? And moving forward wisely and informed, but also with emotional intelligence for other people around you at that same time. You also said, James, don't be shy about like really reaching out to other leaders in your organization. Don't only have a relationship with your direct supervisor or department, but if there's somebody in another department that you hear cool things about or want to understand how does their job work, and for them, that kind of job shadow, that kind of time, you have it right now. And all of the people that have been in the work world, they want to help you succeed. And they know for most of us, we didn't have a straight path to get to the work that we're doing. We jiggity, zigzagged a little bit. And we want to share those kinds of insights with people who are trying to figure out what are your next steps. And good for you to ask questions and to engage. Really, besides that, the Department of Defense is prioritizing model-based definition and digital transformation. So this is the generation in the world we are already in. So keep learning. And please email me if there's something I can help you with. If you had trouble with today's login or it didn't get to you, check your spam. Make sure that I'm a named contact in your emails so that I don't dive into your junk or get blocked by some kind of firewall. And encourage your other peers if you're in a company with multiple to sign up. And yes, for text updates for future events. Connor, thank you so much for that prompt. So let me pull up. If you guys would like to text, and Connor, if you want to drop this in while I'm reading it, I don't have this phone number memorized, but if you text the word intern to the number I'm going to share right now, you will get text alerts for upcoming events because we know sometimes that's easier than digging through emails. So the phone number is 860-329-8851. Just put the word intern in that message. Okay, so 860-329-8851. Thanks, Connor. And that's it for today. Are there any last questions while we still have James on the call, or we'll let you get back? Sorry, we're 1 minute over.
All right, thank
No
you,
more
everybody. Reach out.
All right,
LinkedIn is
James.
there as well.
Thank you so much,
Yeah.
James. You're fabulous.
Thank
Really
you. Thank you.
appreciate all your work. Thank you. Bye, everyone.